Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we are back in War Thunder and it's time to have a look at the new set of authentic decals for the next few weeks. This runs until the 28th of November, so you pretty much have the whole of November to be able to do these, and there are 6 of them, which is kind of nice. Obviously you have the standard 200 GE one, which is the black cat emblem of the 282nd Assault Helicopter Company, Da Nang in Vietnam, 1967, and then you have a spattering of ones, mainly around ground and air. It would be nice at some point to maybe try and diversify a little bit when it comes to the decals. Maybe add in some ship ones once again, or maybe some helicopter ones. I understand that the helicopter ones, at least for me, I don't really like getting, but at the same time it would be nice to see the majority of the game being covered instead of just air and ground, which is what we see this time, or airplanes I should say, and ground. The other thing as well is tomorrow there's going to be an official live stream with Kirill Yudintsev. Now, if you don't know who Kirill Yudintsev is, he's of course the brother of CEO Anton Yudintsev, and he is Gaijin's CCO. And he also, he's done a few videos in the past when it comes to addressing the War Thunder community about certain issues, so it'll be interesting to see this live stream. I might restream it, I'm not exactly sure, but I will definitely look at the questions and answers that are given, and hopefully we get some interesting ones, answered. Normally, I'm kind of disappointed by these, just because the questions are not always the ones that I would like to, ask, but then again, surely that's the case with all of these things. You can never get exactly what you want, so sometimes you have to settle for half best. Let's talk about the decals, though. The first one is Destroyer. You have to destroy 60 or 34 RB and SB enemy player-controlled vehicles while driving British ground vehicles. You have the emblem for the 119th Engineer Tank Yudintsev Regiment. You have to win 5 battles and finish in first place while driving Soviet ground vehicles. Ariete, which is the personal emblem of the 132nd Army Division Italy, captured 25 while driving Italian ground vehicles. The emblem of the 4th Kokudan JASDF, participate in 4 battles and achieve a score of at least 2,000 whilst flying Japanese aircraft. That's kind of an interesting one. And then the Skeleton Rider emblem of the VF-171 Squadron, the US Navy, 1978. And what you have to do is destroy 60, 30 for RB and SB enemy player-controlled vehicles whilst flying US aircraft or purchase for 200 GE. So you can definitely see that this time these ones are a hell of a lot easier than last week's or last time's, which were pretty hard actually, especially when it came to some of them, at least when it came to, completing them outright. So it definitely took a bit more time. A lot of these are much more, let's just kind of just mosey our way through them, which is completely fine. It just basically means that, it should be a lot easier this time, even though there are more of them. So if you want to find them in the game, it's pretty simple. If you go to, whoops, don't freeze on me. There we go. The game's been temperamental over the last few days, I'll say that. But if you want to find them, you can find them here in the decals part. You can also find them in the achievements part under decals. And then you just go to week's latest and they're all here. And then you can add them to your favorites, which puts them right here. I've also been screwing around with my settings, so not everything is dark as all hell. So you can see here that the Spitfire is a hell of a lot more brighter than it used to be. If you want to have a look at the cat decal, obviously the cat decal, you cannot actually, you cannot, grind, you have to buy. So that is what it looks like, the little cat right there. And, it looks okay. I think if I was going to pick a favorite out of all of these, it's got to be the Skeleton Rider. I think the Skeleton Rider one is really cool. It's, obviously flying on the plane itself, going in with the good old munitions. So let's go through each of them, give my opinions on which ones are easy to get, which ones are hard to get, and also how to do them. So the first one we're going to talk about is the Destroyer one. Now, the Destroyer one is pretty simple. All you have to do is get 60 kills overall in British ground vehicles ranked 2 to 7. So you can use pretty much anything you want from rank 2 to 7. And it isn't one of those where you have to get so much score or you have to get a certain position. Instead, it's just play the game and get kills, and eventually you'll do it. This means that you have any lineup that you want to take from, the basics of 2.7 to all the way to 10.3 with a Challenger 2. And it means that it should be quite easy. If you want really good lineups, there are a few which definitely stand out. I've personally been running this 5.0 Iron Duke lineup, and what you find is with a lot of Tigers running around, especially with their Panther friends, the Iron Duke and the Comet does really well against them. Basically, you have the penetration to be able to do damage to them. If you get down-tiered, you face a hell of a lot of Panzer IVs, so you can just run the AP shell and start mashing stuff. And if you need the extra penetration, you've got the APDS, but then again, the APDS doesn't do a ton of damage. But yeah, the Comets, as long as you remember you don't have a reverse gear, as long as you remember that you can't get out of situations, you have to plan, 5 seconds ahead to turn, it's not too bad. The other few lineups which are really fun is the Cromwell lineup, so the 3-7 lineup. You run the Cromwell 1, the Sherman 2, and the Cromwell 5. This is just an insanely fun lineup, which is why I'm putting it forward. The guns themselves penetrate enough at the tier to be able to dunk on anything you feel like. All of these machines are medium tanks. They get access to artillery and a ton of smoke on the Cromwells. 30 smoke, so you can just run around and just chuck them everywhere. The other lineups as well, 4-7 can work, the Avenger, the Churchill Mark 7 and the Sherman Firefly is a pretty decent lineup. We're not really looking at aircraft because, of course, you need kills in ground vehicles. Therefore, you're going to be playing, or you should be playing, the majority in ground. So therefore, planes don't really matter for these lineups. 6-7 is, of course, a powerhouse as well. I'm actually going to be using my 6-7 lineup, and the reason is not the normal one that it should be. So at 6-7, you've got amazing stuff in the tree. You got the Cent Mark 3, Carnarvon, FV4202. This already is a baller lineup. Stabilizers, 20 pounder, got good pen, got good reload, and decent mobility, at least from these two. So overall, you can do really well. Then you add in the STRV RB52, the Centurion Action X as well. And then you also have the 2 tank destroyers, which are definitely secondary picks compared to these vehicles. So the reason why I'm running 6-7 is so I can spade out my Tortoise and my Barn. Basically. Now, I did run into a Jagdtiger the last match, and then I realized, why am I in a Tortoise against the Jagdtiger? How are these things the same BR? But, it happens. And the other thing as well is, once they're spaded, I don't have to worry about them again. And that is another approach that you can think about while doing stuff like this. Because there's no strict, let's call it, skill challenge here, it's just getting kills. Then all you have to, and you want to be able to, just play the game normally, why not just use it to spade vehicles? Why not just use it to push yourself forward in the research while just doing this as well? Or it may take you a little bit longer than doing it as efficiently as possible with something like the Cromwell lineup or something like the Comet lineup, but at the end of the day, if you're getting research which is beneficial to you on top of what you're already doing, then you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. This new 7-3 lineup as well is pretty nice. The Vickers MBT, the Conch, and of course the Centurion Mark 10. The Conqueror is still one of my favorite vehicles when it comes to Britain in War Thunder, at least in the ground vehicle portion. really fun gun to use. Got its reload reduced a little bit ago. And also, with the new armor package, it actually is kind of tanky against stuff like leopards, which is really, really useful. So yeah, the three major lineups to use are the 371, the 501 if you have the Iron Duke. If not, swap that for the 47 lineup, and then the 671, and just take your pick of vehicles to throw in. The next one is the emblem of the 119th Engineer Tank Regiment, and this is for the Soviets. You have to win the mission and come first. So you have to worry about, two sets of things. You have to worry about, obviously coming first of all, and also winning the match. So normally, if you're gravitating towards the first position, especially nowadays, now that they did the plane change, so you can't just, get a ton of points in plane. So normally when you're gravitating towards the first place position, you are going to have a massive impact on the game anyway. But you still have to make sure to win the game, which means capturing points, which you do get score for, which will once again naturally gravitate you to the top. Now, when we look at lineups which are available from rank 2 to 7, normally the lower that you go, the more opportunity you have in order to be able to affect, the game. So, in my opinion, trying to stick around rank 2 is probably the best idea to do. So, stuff such as the 3.7 lineup of the T-34s, things like the T-34-1942, the T-34-1941, and the T-34-1940 is a stellar lineup. And if you want to, you can add in a KV-1L11 for a little bit of armor as well, if you're finding yourself to be downed a decent amount, so you can pretty much just roll over the enemy. Another really nice lineup, if you have it, is the 4-row lineup. Now, the 4-row lineup's a little bit dodgy, but overall it'll do you real well, and the reason is because of what it faces. 4-3 to 3-3, which is what you'll mainly be fighting in the 4-row lineup, is a really nice, it's a really nice space. The problem is the premiums that you need. So T-34E STZ, T-34E with the spaced armor, then you have the Su-85A just in case you get up-tiered, and then the KV-1E just as your main bruiser. So you can see that's a really good lineup, but it's one of those ones which, you can't always rely on because you'll get up-tiered. Another one is 4.3, which is an incredibly strong one as well. You have the T-34-57 right here. Then you have the KV-1 ZIS-5, and then the ASU-57, or something like the KV-2 or the SU-85. There's many options for 4.3 as well, plus some premiums such as the KV-2 or the T-34-57. So these three lineups already, when we're only just starting to break into rank 3, are three incredibly fun and also really good lineups. The easiest one to use, if you want to get first, I believe, is the 3.7 one, just because of the low BR idea. And if you have the Mark II Matilda or the T-34 First Guards, you can throw them in as well. You could also run a cheeky 2-3 lineup if you really want to. You can run in the T-28 and then the ZIS-30, the T-80, the Su-76M if you want to go really low BR. But at that point, the reason to run a lineup like that is so you can do well in planes and carry from there. So if you've got stuff like the Lag 334 or the Yak-7B, then what you can do is with the Lag 334, you can annihilate anything on the ground. But the Yak-7B, you can play air cover and gain points from shooting down aircraft. That is always generally something that I focus on, just because I'm a better pilot than I am a tanker. So therefore, I will use this lineup, like the 2-3 or the 3-7 lineup, to do well, and then getting an aircraft like the I-185 M82 or the IL-2M Avenger, so I can have more of an impact on the game from the top. And yeah, I mean, if you want to go higher, there are plenty of other lineups that you can do. I've been struggling a lot around the 6-7 lineups for the Soviets, just because their guns don't seem to pen a lot. But if you want to go 5-7, 5.7's incredibly strong. T-34-85, IS-2, and then, of course, stuff like PT-76. The 5.3 lineup is even stronger. T3485 D5T, IS-1, and then of course stuff like the SU-85M or Type 65, the TV, the KV-220. There's just so many options when it comes to the Soviets. And then that's not even talking about rank 5 if you prefer the higher stuff. Just run the 3 T-54s and maybe the IS-4M just in case you get down to it. And the ZSU-57 too. Probably not the best tank destroyer anymore, but still very good. So yeah, there's just a ton of options, and you could also run the MiG-9 with this and have a bit of fun. 8.3 as well with the BMP-2 and the T-62. The Soviet tree is just full of really, really nice lineups. Like it's incredibly fun to play. But just to get the firsts, I would just stick to low tiers, just because you normally come up against less experienced players. The next one is Italy, and you need to capture zones. So this is something that will just happen naturally over time if you let it. So you can pretty much run whatever you want, but if you want to be as efficient as possible, you've got the speedy boys, the Fiat 6614, the Orbital, and the R3 T106. If you decide to make a lineup out of these, I mean, it's a really good lineup. I still don't understand why this thing is lower BR than this, apart from the fact that it's slightly slower. You know, it still has pretty much the same capabilities. But if you want to make a 7-3 lineup of these 3 armored cars right here, it will work pretty well when it comes to capturing zones. So pretty much all you have to do is capture a zone off the bat. If you get enough spawn points, you can get in a plane. If you don't, you can get in another one of your speedy boys and just basically go to different caps. If you really want to, you know, annoy people, the R3 T20 is the way to do it as well, with its 20mm, the wonderful stabilized 20mm. So you can run around with that thing. But yeah, it's just capturing zones. So over time, you will be able to, you know, get them. So if you want to weave it into your general researching, you know, through the Italian tech tree, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing that. It's, you know, obviously it will complement your researching and give you something else to focus on. You also have the Orbital 74 HVG if you want to, but generally I would stay away from that BR, just because, you know, the Orbital itself, I did a review on it. I generally think it's a pretty good vehicle, but it can just be frustrating to use because of the post-pen effect of the round. So instead, I would go around this BR, the 7.3 one. You could go and play the 7.7 one. Whatever really you need to spade or whatever you really need to research, just play that. This is not a skill-based challenge. It's literally just a let's just capture some zones. Most maps will have a zone which is, let's call it a friendly zone, so an easier zone to capture. Make sure you go to that one first so you can get your zone, and then whenever your allies push, make sure to push with them so you can get the secondary and the tertiary zone. The next one is the emblem of the 4th Kokudan JSDF, missions played for mission score 2000. So in this one, you do not have to, you know, win the battle. So don't worry about winning the battle, just worry about getting the 2000 score. You got to do it in aircraft as well. So let's try and look at it from an aerialistic point of view, just because I think aerialistic is much more, well, interesting to get 2000 in than ground. Basically in ground what you do is you get in a light vehicle like a Chaffee, run around like a crazy man, get some caps, get some kills, and then pop in a plane, and then try and get your 2000, and then sit back in that plane. Now, 2000 in aerialistic pretty much equates to around about 3 kills. So if you're confident in a bunch of planes to get 3 kills, you know, make sure just to take them out. I would easily be confident in something like a J2M2 or a set of zeros, the Key 44s, any of these zeros. I'd be confident in myself getting 3 kills in a match. If we're looking at a way to kind of cheese it though, and what I mean by that is go ground attack and, you know, turn the brain off while doing it, because you don't have to win the battle, right? So you just have to complete it. The B7A2 is a good shot. The reason for this is because its 20mm are great at killing ground targets. They are really good at killing soft ground targets. So stuff like AA artillery, and armored cars. Then you get either an 800 kilo bomb, so you can nuke a base, or you can take a torpedo, which will be very useful on most Japanese maps. Being able to sink a destroyer or a cruiser or something similar to that with a torpedo means that you instantly get a ton of score behind, the B7A2. And if you can find many parts of the maps which you are left alone, then you are going to do well. I'll show you an example of a map, what I mean, because obviously, as a person who wants to try and stay away from the enemy because you're ground pounding, it's always important to, go around the maps and, make sure that you are protected. So something like Zhengzhou, which is pretty popular right now because you face a lot of Soviets and China, basically you stay along this bracket of vehicles. There's AA and artillery all around this area, and there is a line of 3 separate sets of pillboxes here. You nuke them, then you nuke everything down here, and you work your way across. And by the time you've done a decent amount, finished off your ammo, it's time to go back to the airfield and hope that your team can carry you. And if they can't, then it's time for you to get back with some ammunition and with some bombs and get that 2000. Stuff like Iwo Jima, basically you have the line of AA, you've got to go down it, you don't have a choice. In the Mato Grosso Canal, you work around this area here, and you hope that the Americans, actually sometimes on Guadalcanal it's actually better just to wait about 5 minutes in a B7, wait for the Americans to engage your fighters, and then go in. So that gives you a little bit of patience. Korea, you've got to hit the ground targets which are around here and here on it. And on something like New Guinea, you nuke a ship and then try and hit some AA. Same with Peleliu, and same with stuff like Midway. Hit a ship and then see if you can attack some of the lighter vehicles. So the B7A2 is a great pick to get the 2000s. If you're not confident in getting 3 kills in these aircraft, I think, you should be though. And also, if you want to take it to arcade, which is not normally something I talk about, but arcade, taking a full lineup of Japanese fighters and just bopping people, you'll easily get 2000 through that. If you want to go a little bit higher BR, the R2Y2s with their cannons are very good at ground striking as well. The J5N1 is surprisingly good because of its 20mm, but I use this as generally an air support fighter and it worked pretty well. So yeah, those are my picks to get 2000s. If you're not comfortable in, fighters, it still should be easy. The Skeleton Rider, so you need 60 kills in air vehicles of the US, rank 226, and that means 30 kills in RB overall. This one should be pretty simple. Once again, it's just one of those ones that'll take time. Getting 30 kills in RB over a 3-week period should not be too hard. You basically just have to play whatever you are comfortable with. There are many vehicles in the American tech tree which are very good fighters, starting with the P40s all the way to stuff like the P51Hs. Yes, a lot of the jets are very good fighters as well, but I'm just going to skip them for now, just because I want to focus on prop stuff. So my picks when it comes to this tech tree of really good vehicles, you've got the P47N, a lot of engine power, is able to play the high altitude game against machines like the Germans and win, because it's able to dive well, it's able to keep its energy well, and it's got ridiculous amounts of ammunition, so you can stay in the fight for a long time. The P51H has a really good 10 minutes in aerialistic, and then its web dies, and you wonder what you're doing. So as long as you have a massive impact in those 10 minutes, which you can do with this machine, you can do really well in it. It's impressive. It's really, really fun to use. Problem is, though, you face jets a decent amount of the time, so don't bother. I might actually use this time to spade some of my vehicles that I haven't spaded yet in the American tech tree, so stuff like the F6, F5N. Even though I don't like the machine, it's only 30 kills. Stuff like these Corsairs as well, which I have enjoyed playing. It's just that it got really tiresome playing them, and I'll show you why. It might be, let's see, which one is it? It's the F4U4B, right? Yeah. So the reason why it got tiresome is, let's see, can I find it? Here's the F4U4, so 16 kills, 21 deaths. So obviously not too good in that one, but I'm doing okay in it. And then where is the F4? For God's sake. It's going to be impossible to find now, isn't it? It's just going to be one of those things, which is, there we go. So 20 kills and 14 deaths. So you can see that I'm doing pretty well, but I always just felt like I was up against it in the F4U4B and especially in the F4U4, just because of the fact that they were always above me. I had to wait until my enemies, I had to wait until my enemies were being, they went after my allies before I could engage them, which is never a good position that you want to be in. The other strong fighters of the American tech tree, I mean, this whole part of the tech tree is very strong. It's just, in order to win a lot of battles, you have to carry pretty hard, just because of the amount of bombers and attackers that you have on your team. But stuff like the P63C5 is incredibly good. The A10 and the A5 are also incredibly good for their BR. Stuff like the P400 is always overlooked, even though it's a very good machine as well. The A36, all of these are just really nice. If you haven't played this aviation part of the American tech tree, I'd strongly recommend it. A lot of people do look down on it, but it's still, they're still really strong planes. The problem is always team composition when it comes to American stuff. So yeah, just stay away from like the 6-3 area, because what will happen is, because there aren't too many 7.0s running about, you run into a lot of ME262s and you just get outclassed by them because you run out of weapon, they don't run out of power. So just stick around, the 5.7 to 2.7 area, and you'll do pretty well. If you want to do it most efficiently, of course, going down to these BRs, especially with stuff like the P39Q and N, that is the way to go. The P400, I would definitely say, is one to take as well. It's really low BR. It has a ton of ammunition behind it as well. You can stay in the air for a long time. It just doesn't have any armor, so just don't get shot, and you'll be okay. So yeah, 60 kills, or 30 overall. It shouldn't take too long to do it. There are plenty of aircraft to pick, and my picks are the P47N, the P51H, the P63C5, and also the P400. So yeah, that's how you get that one done. Those are the decals for the next few weeks. Hopefully you can integrate them into your normal research when it comes to War Thunder, and don't forget about the live stream tomorrow. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Yuyins Terry, E-Love Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.